Want to introduce us?
Hello, Cambridge. This is Q Unlimited with our usual host, Michael Koran, and we are doing a show on, what are we talking about, Michael? Love.
Yes, we're talking about what we do not know. Q and I might know. I know little about, but have been very interested in for 73, well, maybe not 73 years, but should have
73
been.
years.
The lack thereof at the beginning,
For you.
yes, made me very interested in what it was like. I remember in summer camp as a camp counselor, 22 years old, University of Chicago, in the Wisconsin Dells camp. And there was a meeting of all the counselors, and the director said, "What would you like to talk about?" And very, very sheepishly, I said, "I'd like to talk about love." And we did, but while that was happening, many people were meeting in the woods and hugging, and I was very foreign to me for many reasons. So I remember once trying to hug someone and feeling nothing.
Feeling nothing.
Nothing at all. Totally numbed. I now understand why I didn't then.
How old were you?
22.
22.
Yes,
22.
My beloved mother used to hit me all the time and then yell at me for crying, and so I had to protect myself. I froze, which was a good strategy at the time.
Well, yeah, you have to do something.
Yes, and now I just recently discovered, you can't rush these things, that I could take that freezing feeling and thermostat it, I was telling you.
Thermostat it.
So I could say, okay, if it's dangerous, which it isn't with you usually, I could just have a tiny bit of coldness or none, but it can always come back if I need it.
Right.
Ice is nice.
Ice is nice.
When you need it. Yes, cool, man. So that's a new discovery, that I can use a thermostat to work with that coldness. That's helped me a lot. When I was with my beloved ex-girlfriend, it was easier to be with her because the coldness didn't have to come. When she was coming to visit, I could feel it and remember, oh my, I could thermostat this.
Now, was there something that triggered it? I mean, was it just the idea of
Just
being...
the idea of being with someone, now we're even friends, so according to her, so it was a little safer.
Okay.
But even then, the coldness out of habit comes to me. Oh my, there's a woman there, a possibility of getting close, and all that involves. Okay, everybody, cold, freeze, come on, let's get on, let's take care of this, let's be cool. And so now, finally, at this advanced stage, maybe for the next life, which might come in this life, which they do come in this life, actually, I can now not feel so cold when I'm with someone I'm close with.
And what about before you got to this point? I mean, has it always been that way? And how did you get past that?
Well,
Previously, I mean.
I've had fight, flight, or freeze. Those are, the deer in the headlight. So if, human being present first, wasn't even woman.
Oh, really?
Human being is here, fight, flight, or freeze. And I would, not with friends, but sometimes with friends too, but certainly with women I was close with, I would love arguing with them.
Love arguing with them?
I love showing them that I am good and you are bad. I am smart and you are dumb.
Now, it's interesting because I know, children will argue and fight with you to get attention. Was it the same kind of, thing? Were you trying to get their attention, or was it, an offense, a strike?
All of the above.
All of the above.
Fighting against my mother, pay attention to me, I'm the smart one, I'm so scared, I wouldn't acknowledge it because I'm going to beat you in an argument.
Of course, right.
So that was my great strategy. I recommend everyone not using that.
Don't use that. Not if you want to have a functional
relationship. But I didn't know
relationship.
these things. I did this again and again and again and again for 21 different women. The only reason I stopped for my last two...
I'm sorry, did you say 21?
Yes.
You stud, you.
Well, I didn't start making love till I was 30. I was so scared.
Wow.
I had no feelings.
I was half your age.
Yes, I had no feelings. And the second half of this show, Q's interviewing me the first half, then we're going to change seats. We're going to be here for an hour, and we're saving the best for last. Q
Right.
is going to share with us his wisdom. I'm sharing you my ignorance
Well,
about love.
well, let me ask you, how, did you have a lot of long-term relationships? Were they all short-term? And when I say long-term, I mean, 5+ years.
I thought you were going to say 5+ months. So.
No. Long-term is 5+ years.
It was so frightening. I mean, I started, oh my, it's going to be sad. My first girlfriend, I was 26, teaching at a community center in Hyde Park, all black children. And I had met her at the Southside School of Secular Jewish Studies, where thanks to my younger brother, who's still older than you, he had sent me or gave me Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band.
Oh, great album.
As a present. Now, I didn't know. I was studying Augustine and Plato and stuff like
The
that.
philosopher that you are.
Yes, or thought I was, or just escaping in my mind from the dangers of life. It was very nice in a way. And so he sent me this, and so I thought I'd bring to my secular Jewish students, 6th and 7th grade, and play for them Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band.
Wow.
How would you be if I sang you a song? Would you get up and walk out on me? And this assistant, who was 15 and a half, I didn't know that, came in and thought, what a hip teacher. He's really
I
with
would
it.
have thought that, absolutely.
Yes, well, I who had just been introduced to it, instead of, fortunately didn't bring in the Torah. And so she wanted to she didn't know how old I was either. I invited her, not thinking of anything about romantic, because I just didn't think in those terms. Okay, would you like to come to see me at my Hyde Park Neighborhood Club Center? This was in Kenwood, actually, where she lived. This was a wealthy area, in part, and then poor people, around the University of Chicago. She lived in the wealthy area. And so she comes to my class, and I'm teaching them how to read by playing Scrabble. I'm trying to be a hip teacher.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea.
Yes, and then they start throwing the pieces at one another, and I can't control them. I just don't know how to do that. And I tell everyone to leave, and I'm so embarrassed. She had come. And so feeling embarrassed, I walk her. She asked me to walk her home. And new to me, I had this feeling of love, which I'd never had in my life for anybody.
Okay. Describe what love was to you.
It felt, this is what her parents said to me, who were, when they found out I was 26 and she was 15 and a half, they said to me, her father, who's wiser in these things, although I thought I was, Mr. Brilliant, and these were just ordinary people. They didn't know Plato and St. Augustine. And he said, it sounds like you're in love with love. So there's this nice feeling, which I think is probably, if it was in me, it probably is in all of us. And
Well, I'm guilty. Absolutely,
yes,
I'm guilty.
there's a nice feeling that comes up, even a self-love feeling that I love. And this came out. It was a little safer with her. She was 15 and a half. I was 26. And I had this, I didn't really know her very well. I just loved the feeling I was having when I was with her. And sometimes I would hug her.
So what was the feeling that you were
what was
feeling
it?
when you were with her?
It felt peaceful. I felt whole.
Is that wonderful, though?
It was very, very, very nice. And they found out my age. But fortunately, I was also, I wanted to do good things. I was caring for my teacher, one of my professors, Marshall Hodgson, had 2 twins who had leukodystrophy.
Oh, my.
And so they were losing the twins. They were losing the use of their arms and legs, and not really aware of this. I thought I was being very good in caring for them, not really aware that, oh my, I was getting in good with my professor at the Committee on Social Thought.
That wasn't at the forefront of the action.
I should have known. When he died, I lost interest in caring for them.
Okay.
So
So it was subconscious.
yes, or as Sartre would say, bad faith. I wasn't really,
Bad faith.
I wasn't looking, I wasn't looking at what was really going on. So much better to think I was just this very saintly person, not really getting in touch with this is what I want from him.
Right, exactly.
Well, anyway, they sent out a Christmas letter thanking me for caring for their two twins. And she showed that to her parents, who were thinking about forbidding her, which isn't such a great idea for parents to do anyway to a 15-and-a-half-year-old.
Absolutely.
Thinking about forbidding her from seeing me because I was 26. And she was 15. She was really much more older and healthier than I in many ways.
Really?
I mean, I was just so...
Well, I think that's the case for most, I mean, for women and men for the most part.
That-
Yeah, that women mature.
Oh,
earlier
yes,
than
but
men
I
do.
still was 26. So they let me see her, and we would hug from time to time on her. That's all. I would assure them that I wasn't going to make love to their daughter. They didn't want that assurance. I probably needed it because I would be pet. Because even holding her, I really needed to be held. I needed a mother. I mean, I didn't know that then. And after a while, even holding her, I felt my back would break, as if something was coming out of me that was going to break me in half.
Wow.
And I had to go running.
Now, when you say something, do you feel, when you say that, do you mean that your spine was kind of moving away from her, but your body was glued to her? What
Maybe
exactly do you
maybe
mean?
that was it. You would know better. I didn't know. But it just felt I was gonna. Yes, maybe something wanted to come out of me, like sperm or whatever. And
Community television, Michael.
no, we can say anything except we can't advocate violent overthrow of the government, or
Okay.
I think we're not allowed to be pornographic.
Okay.
That's not pornographic. I think that's the second. And we're not allowed to advertise.
No advertising.
Yes. Other than that, so I would go for long runs. I'd say I have to go. Unfortunately, she was so young, I thought that I was being respectful in some ways. And she didn't know then. And then, alas, I was reading Soren Kierkegaard, among other things, who had also a young girlfriend. He was 21 only, and she was 14, Regina Olsen. And
Well, why don't you tell us all who that is
Soren
exactly?
Kierkegaard is some people consider the father of existentialism.
Oh.
And he wrote a famous book called Fear and Trembling. And I read it because I loved the title. And the second book and part of that little volume was called Sickness Unto Death. I love that title too. And I read them, and unfortunately, he said what she did with this woman. He loved her, and like me, he was a punk, but I didn't know that then. He said, like Abraham was willing to give up his beloved son Isaac because God called, just because God called, he gave up this love for this woman. Just broke it off, thinking it was a religious activity. 2 years later, he wanted to get back to her.
2 years.
But she had been engaged to someone else and didn't. And he's buried next to her, eventually, and always loved her. But unfortunately, I didn't know the second part of the story, that he wanted to get back with her. Well, the same thing happened to me, as you can guess.
Oh.
And it was too late. And so when my 15-and-a-half-year-old girl, Barbara Engel, who I'm still in touch with, she's and we're friends, and it's a longer story. I might even tell it. But, and so when she was 16 and getting more sensual and sexual, and I was more scared, and began criticizing me a little bit, just a little bit, reminding me of my mother's criticism, I thought for her good, Lord help me, I would break it off so she'd have a chance to be with someone more her own age.
Right.
Which is still going on with me now, with my present girlfriend. My last two girlfriends have been much younger than I, and they have left me because they wanted to be with people more their own age. Karma.
And how do you feel about that?
I feel like crying in many ways.
Has things worked?
And I feel like I'm disassociating. Like I feel like I'm telling these stories, and I'm not. Sometimes I have the secret grin on my face, like a certain sadistic smile, because I'm telling these interesting stories, supposedly interesting stories, and not totally feeling them. And even then, I have to be carefully. I'm so used to talk about defenses. I hide with my words and my supposedly interesting stories.
Well, isn't that part of the byproduct of an education in philosophy, is to kind of be able to tangle yourself up in all these philosophies and words and not really look at it with your heart?
Well, I hope that's not. I hope that's not philosophy. I hope not.
Well, clearly not for you, but I'm saying in the beginning.
Oh, for sure. I was hiding in my head. So that's how love. But that was the first person I loved. I had that feeling for.
Well, how long was that? Did that go on? You say you still know each other. No chance of getting together now?
Well, after I broke up with her. I'm not defending these things, and I hope these are not a story. If I relive this, oh my Lord. No wonder I want to tell a nice story. They're rather painful to relive. Fortunately, I only have 12 more minutes, and then you can be on the show. Stay tuned. You will have healthier stories. Oh my. So, I mean, they're really beautiful. I mean, but if I don't hide in the words. So about a year later, as you can guess, I thought I wanted to marry her, and I asked her to marry, just out of the blue, shockingly, a big gesture. And she didn't say yes, and her father kindly told me he felt that about one woman when he was young. He was very kind to me. Joe Engel. And I remember hugging her after asking her to marry me. She hadn't seen me for a year. I kept away, and she had been with another lover, which I couldn't do then anyway. Big talk here. I was really frozen still, and hugging her and not liking it at all, and thinking I have to stick to this desire.
Now, why didn't you like it? Because she had been with someone else?
No, because I was just
It was just you. It was
and
everything
it was a
you'd
little
been
closer.
through. Yeah.
I'm not. And so fortunately she said no, and I kept her in my mind and heart as a defense when I started going out with other women, thinking I really want to marry Barbara.
So you sabotaged.
To be more kindly, I mean, this was a bit ill, to say the least, but I was so frightened. The next woman I was with, Debbie Meyer, I met her on campus. She was 17 and I was about 27 then. And she said, I like you, can I come live with you?
Just like that?
Just like that. She was a freshman at the University of Chicago, Catholic. And I had become Catholic. That's another story we will save for...
And you are now?
I'm now many religions, but including Catholic.
Well,
but I need all the help I can get.
Of course.
All the help I can get, including Q as a dance teacher. What help? So... Debbie and we lived in one room. I had my one room. She just left her dorm and came and stayed with me. We slept in this single mattress in this student place and just slept side by side for 6 months and just hugging.
Did nothing else?
Occasional kiss. Said, let's go. We winked when it was time to kiss. And a little kiss. And it was my first, and it was safe because thought I was going to marry Barbara, so we were just friends. And we once decided...
Kissing friends.
Yes, kissing friends, sleeping together night by night. And then she was a Catholic, and she was not quite as scared of sex as no one was, as I was, but at least she had been told that we should wait till you're married and so on.
Right.
So a little safer, and never having talked about it. And a lovely, 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 lovely woman. I didn't know how to... I was just learning to like being touched or hugged, really. And couldn't really appreciate how lovely she was. And once we decided to make love, and neither of us really knew what to do. We didn't have, the impulses were not there, for me at least. And so she eventually started living back with her roommate. But that was so helpful to me, to live for 6 months and just to hold and be next to someone and have this structure. I've done this my whole life. Oh, it's not going to be a marriage because I love someone else. So, and so that made it a little safer to even be with her and to not know that we were going to be a couple. So this was I don't know if I felt love for her either. My mind was thinking, I love Barbara. I'm not defending this, but the revelation is that we go through amazing. These were all helpful to me.
Of course. I mean, as long as we see everything as a growing
It
and
really
possible learning
was. It was
experience.
very ill,
Right.
but it was my way of beginning to get close to a woman.
It's so hard to, you're such a loving and hugging person now. It's almost impossible for me to see you in that light.
Oh, I see. Well, I still have my challenges. I've had two younger women in their 40s. No, Barbara left me when she was 36, and Michelle left me when she was 48. So I've had two young women. It's the same pattern in some ways. Two young women leave. This time they did the leaving. I've learned, even though I feel like leaving, I don't say it anymore.
So let me ask you this: when you say they left, was it because you sabotaged?
I don't think so. I mean, who knows? I mean, these are all co-created. Although I could have asked Barbara to marry me, I think she would have. This new Barbara, who, because she had the same name, did have that, meant a lot to me.
Right.
And her last name was Michaels. My first name is Michael.
All these omens.
I could have asked Barbara to marry me. I thought of it many times, and I said I have to wait at least. I feel this for a month, and something always happened, and I didn't. And eventually, she once stops in front of a wedding shop looking at wedding gowns. That might have been.
So let me go back to the question that apparently we bypassed. What was your longest relationship?
I was telling you this before. I finally said, after many 5-month relationships in my 30s, when I started making love to people in my own inimitable, frightened, painful way. And I would have I was lucky I was big. I was tall and big and supposedly good looking over my terror. And so women liked me. And they would be with me, and after about 5 months, which was really, really hard for me to just stay in there with all the trauma and terror and confusion.
Now, the trauma and terror you caused yourself,
yes,
not in the relationship.
Not from them, no. I mean, I would be quite...
a force?
Yes, I would be so critical and... but nice also. I mean, both at the same time. But that made it even harder. I was like this nice, helpful person who was extraordinarily critical of what they wore. Oh, you're wearing pink. That's so ugly, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Just very, very critical. And I eventually said in my late 30s, I don't want to be with someone for just 5 months again. And I don't want to be with someone that I know it's going to end. And then I met, lucky me, my wife at a Sabbath group I helped start it. Rabbi Pfeiffer Khan. What a gift. And she liked me. She was talking about Hagel underneath a light at the Sabbath group. And I thought, a woman talking about Hegel? Wow!
And who's Hegel?
Hegel is a great German philosopher who influenced Marx. And Marx, of course, changed the world. And Hegel was his primary teacher, really.
Okay.
And I thought, wow, because even you don't know about him. And I afterwards, when I talked to her about that moment, she said, I was just wondering if the light was making my hair look good or not. So I had my first date with her, but it lasted 8 years, 8.5 years.
Okay, that's a chunk of change.
Yes, but I broke it off about 100 times.
So you kept sabotaging.
I apparently didn't sabotage it, but if I got angry and cold and fight, flight, or freeze, I would just say it's over, because I felt it was over.
Right.
And then after the temper tantrum ended, about 24 hours later, I would always be very honest with myself and call and say, I'd like to get back together. But I always make a new rule. I'd say, but this time, when my friend comes over and wants to borrow a typewriter, you've got to lend it to him. Don't be selfish.
So there was conditions to your life.
And she would go along with them. Sometimes she didn't even agree to them, but she knew that would be a way to get me back.
Right.
And so we lasted
Very controlling.
to say the least. We lasted for 8.5 years.
Like that.
Like that, yes. Through a marriage. And I am blessed that someone loved me that way. She had her own challenges, which we will not go into.
Well, we all have them. Yeah.
Yes, but she loved me and still does. Just talk to her on my birthday.
Oh, that's beautiful.
We just talk once a year. That's all she'll let me.
She'll let you only talk once a year?
Yep, yep.
Why? Because it's too painful for her?
Maybe, yes. She was very unhappy when I met Michelle, and Michelle moved in, and that was the time, because she wanted to be back with me, in spite of all my...
Well, you're evolving. You're an evolving person now.
Yes.
You sure?
No, I mean, to just understand that, we only have a minute and a half. Why don't you bless us with your
Wow.
wisdom about what I have revealed?
Wow.
If you were counseling someone like this, what would you say?
Well,
to
I'm
them?
not a counselor.
I know, but you're a
I hate
good
to present
friend.
myself as that.
No,
but
you're a good friend.
No, I mean, it's unfortunately, it's really, more the norm than the exception. It seems like a lot of people have been injured through family dynamics, and then of course through the whole dating thing. I mean, there just seems to be so much pain that it's a wonder that you're coming through it the way you are, and you are. We've known each other for a few years now, and I see the evolution.
Wow.
And it's actually quite beautiful to be a witness to. But no,
No, but here's a harder question, though.
Okay.
Because the pattern is still, the pattern I shared about Barbara Engel, my first relationship, with someone younger than I. I've just repeated with two younger women in my 60s. Barbara Michaels and my beloved Michelle Ann Scow. And they both have decided they want to be friends, too. So the same pattern is still there. What would you say in the last 30 seconds for a man like I crawling between heaven and earth to do?
break the pattern
How?
any way you can.
We will find out. We won't get a direct answer to that, but this is like, this is a preview to Q talking about what he knows. I was talking about what I do not know. So stay with us. We'll be back in